Good morning, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. I'm Jay Struberg.
I'm Chris Stewart.
And I'm Holly Furfer, in for Rob Nilsson.
I'll reemphasize in the strongest terms possible. This is an incredibly powerful storm, and we all need to take it seriously.
This morning, Hurricane Milton's outer bands are being felt along Florida's Gulf Coast. Every hour will now bring more danger to the state of Florida as this storm moves closer.
The race for the White House converges on Arizona, the first battleground state to begin early voting ahead of the November 5th election. Vice presidential nominees J.D. Vance and Tim Walz holding dueling events today in Tucson. Vice President Kamala Harris visiting the state tomorrow, and former President Donald Trump has a rally scheduled for Sunday.
Google could be broken up as the U.S. government weighs in on how to tackle its online search monopoly. In court documents filed Tuesday, the Justice Department suggested that it would seek structural remedies like forced product sales that would prevent Google from using its Chrome browser, Android operating system, and Play App Store to dominate the search market unfairly.
14 states are suing TikTok. They allege the popular social media app is designed to be addictive and keeps minors on for hours with endless scrolling. They also claim the so-called beauty filters can cause body image issues and other mental and physical health disorders for children.
There is no question Hurricane Milton is going to have a major impact across the entire Florida peninsula, but every city along its Gulf Coast now closely watching this monster storm's path. There was a dramatic shift overnight as it wobbled slightly to the south that could provide some emphasis on some help for the highly populated Tampa Bay area, but make no mistake, the storm's fury will still be felt there.
Now, heavy rain is already spreading across parts of Florida. You're taking a live look here at Sarasota. Again, this is on the western coast of Florida. Milton is expected to make landfall late tonight or early tomorrow morning. There are mandatory evacuation orders in 11 counties with a combined population of 6 million people.
All right, so let's go to St. Petersburg now with our senior meteorologist, Scott Withers. And Scott, final preparations underway. That hurricane is expected to make landfall within 24 hours. So what's happening at this moment?
The sheriff of Hillsborough County, that's the Tampa area, just said it's go time now. It's now or never. You're either leaving now, not in 2 hours, not in 3 hours, now, or you need to hunker down and stay. We are, as you said, in St. Petersburg. We're right on the tip of that peninsula, Pinellas County here. You can see that is the entrance here to Tampa Bay, the Skyway Bridge in the background. This place is going to get flooded. And you know how I know? Look over here. Look at these boats, these massive boats. This is what Helene deposited here 2 weeks ago. So when the storm surge does come in here, this will all be well underwater, and the track did move further to the south. We'll get to that in a second. But Tampa all the way down to Fort Myers, you are in this storm. It is coming in. We've got less than 24 hours. It is still going to be a historic storm.
Mandatory evacuations up and down Florida's Gulf Coast. Cars jamming Florida's highways night and day. Many not making the journey out of the hurricane zone, moving their RVs and cars to higher ground at this Target parking lot in Fort Myers. Milton whipping up winds and driving rain on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. An early example of what's heading towards the Sunshine State. NOAA's Hurricane Hunter planes flying back and forth through the eye wall, a bumpy road as 150-mile-per-hour winds toss the plane.
This storm is going to affect everybody.
It already is. Business owners in coastal Bradenton are boarding up. Massive lines for gas as Governor Ron DeSantis promises there's enough, but not everyone can find any.
Another place I was in line at earlier, and they ran out of gas while I was in line.
And there's still debris piles lining the roads along the beaches. Dump trucks working around the clock, moving it away from the shore, turning the county's fairgrounds into a new temporary landfill. At least for a few more days, until Milton blows across the state and out into the Atlantic.
All right, well, the rain is picking up. We're starting to get some light breezes. That is going to deteriorate really quickly over the next few hours. That's why you're not going to be able to leave later. It's going to be too dangerous to drive. I want to show you the maps here. Take a look at where this thing is. It's still circulating just to the northwest of Cuba there, in the Gulf of Mexico. Category 4 now, strong Category 4, 155 miles per hour. It's almost still a Category 5. There's some upper level shear that's kind of taking off the tops of the thunderstorms. That's why it's dropping down. Take a look on the track here as it moves. Still going to remain a Category 4. National Hurricane Center saying it is going to make landfall tonight between midnight and 2 a.m. as a Category 4 between Sarasota and Port Charlotte. That's the Venice area. It is going to be extremely dangerous, but we're going to feel it all the way up and down the western coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Then it's going to roar through the center of the state, pop out by Palm Bay over there on the east coast as a Category 1 on Thursday at about 2 p.m. So this is going to be traversing the state for about 12 hours. Take a look at the spaghetti models here. They are all consolidating right there over the Venice area just south of Sarasota. That's where it looks now, but this could still shift all the way up to the time it makes landfall. That's what happened with Helene a few weeks ago. At the last second, it did a move. The warnings are exactly where you can imagine. All the red here on the map, that's the hurricane warning. It stretches from the Tampa Bay across the I-4 corridor to the Atlantic coast, from St. Augustine all the way down to Fort Pierce on the east coast. And then we've got those storm surge warnings still in effect here for the Tampa Bay area, up to 15 feet here. Down by Fort Myers, going to get up to 12 feet. That entire area there just going to get hammered later this afternoon into the evening hours. The storm surge is going to come way before the storm actually makes landfall. So you don't have 12 until midnight tonight. You've got less than that. You've got just literally hours. And then, of course, the inland flooding, which I'm extremely concerned about. Look at that purple area there. It stretches basically coast to coast from Tampa across the I-4 corridor. Some areas are going to get 12 inches of rain. There's going to be some isolated areas that are going to get up to 18 inches of rain. Holly, I'll tell you, this town, this area, the counties, Hillsborough, and then also out here in Pinellas County, they are pretty much ghost towns. Everything is shut down, boarded up. People started evacuating. There's the people that are remaining, they need to take a second thought about that and go if they can. Otherwise, they've just going to have to ride it out, because the emergency officials have already said, once this starts, we can't come out and save you. You're going to have to ride it out by yourself.
I'm glad to hear that it's a ghost town in most of the area, because that's important.
Senior meteorologist Scott Withers, thank you, sir. Stay safe. As Milton continues moving toward Florida, Scripps News is expanding its disaster relief campaign to help all hurricane victims. If you would like to donate, scan the QR code on your screen and it'll take you to our website, or you can simply text Scripps to 50155. Even as Hurricane Milton bears down on Florida's Gulf Coast, the 2024 presidential campaign looms over the region's disaster preparations.
Vice President Kamala Harris criticized former President Donald Trump yesterday for spreading misinformation about the government's response to Hurricane Helene and its readiness to deal with Milton. She accused Trump of playing political games while people's lives are in danger. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis won't accept telephone calls from Harris, saying she's the one who's playing politics. But President Biden said DeSantis is working closely with the White House.
The governor of Florida has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call. So I don't know. There was a rough start in some places, but every governor from Florida to North Carolina has been fully cooperative and supportive and acknowledged what this team is doing.
Now, crews have been working around the clock to clean up debris left behind from Hurricane Helene. The concern, a lot of it won't be picked up in time, making Hurricane Milton possibly one of the most destructive storms on record.
Provash Budden now joins us. He works for the global nonprofit AmeriCares and oversees the organization's readiness and response when disaster strikes. And Milton's on track to make landfall sometime tonight along Florida's Gulf Coast. So how exactly is the damage from Hurricane Helene just a couple weeks ago complicating efforts to prepare for Milton? Because there is still a lot of debris from Helene out, and I would imagine that when Milton comes through, a lot of that can be dangerous. They could be flying missiles. It's going to make it even more of a mess to clean up.
Yeah, thank you, Holly, and good morning. We are very concerned at AmeriCares about the ability to access people and survivors of Hurricane Milton. It's great to see that so many people are evacuating from the potentially affected areas. But as you say, there's debris still all over the place around large portions of Florida. And those debris are going to make it very challenging for aid workers to be able to access homes and residents, health clinics, schools, and hospitals, as those debris can get picked up in the winds and create more damage, apart from the damage that these already strong winds are going to have on buildings and installations. And so at AmeriCares, we're looking at how we can reach out to our partners in the area, make sure that they have their plans in place, and be able to then access health clinics predominantly to support them with medicines, medical supplies, and hygiene kits, and get our teams in place immediately after the storm.
And your organization sent response teams to some of the hardest hit communities after Hurricane Helene. What do those communities need the most right now as Milton approaches?
Well, our teams have been over the past 12 days over an area of 5 states that were affected by Hurricane Helene, predominantly in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. What we're seeing is just tremendous amounts of damage, and especially in rural areas that are hard to access. The roads are still cut off, there's debris, and what we see is that people need a lot of water, access to clean water, and medicines and medical supplies. Again, many of these areas in Florida especially have retirement communities and elderly populations that depend on their supplies of medicines, everything from antibiotics to diabetes medicines and hypertension medicines. And so what we're doing with our partners is to ensure that health clinics can get set back up, people have access to their medicines and healthcare, and have access to hygiene kits and safe drinking water.
And we know that 2 weeks ago, Hurricane Helene came in. Now we're looking at Hurricane Milton. So how do you decide which areas to prioritize? Where are you focusing now first?
Well, we have teams right now addressing Hurricane Helene, but as of tomorrow and Friday, we expect to deploy more team members into Florida in the aftermath of Hurricane Milton. Both places are of high priority for AmeriCares, and we've had long-standing partnerships and experience across the southeast of the United States in addressing hurricanes over the decades. And so we won't deprioritize any place, but focus our attention on the most affected and vulnerable communities in the aftermath of both of these very devastating hurricanes.
Provash Budden with AmeriCares, thank you so much for joining us this morning and for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, 2 National League teams take a lead in their playoff series as baseball's postseason drama ramps up. So we'll have details on where things stand. That's coming up.